Welcome to Tone Talks. Welcome to Tone Talks. Welcome to Tone Talks.
What up, y'all? This is Antonio Moore coming to you from Tone Talks. I wanted to come to you briefly to have a discussion about some of the things that I've seen on the internet both yesterday and today. Again, my show with Dash Radio will be coming back hopefully soon. They've been remodeling. While we haven't been regularly on the radio show, I've been trying to come to you with these live videos, and this is one of those moments I feel like it's necessary just to give you my position personally, and both the position that me and Yvette Carnell kind of talk about when it comes to ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery. The New York Times did a extensive piece yesterday. Another piece will come out from Farrah Stockman, I believe that's her name. She came to the conference, was there almost 8 hours. I don't necessarily agree with everything in the piece, but we here now. I always said we coming. I shout out to the young woman that had the shirt that said we coming, that was walking away. I don't think people understand this. This for me personally is a 12-year journey to get here. I didn't vote for Obama either term, so I don't know. Whoever it is, they probably just in a whole different space than what I did. I voted down ballot Democratic in 08 and in 12. So I've been here. So it's not like an evolution for me. So when I hear people talking to me about politics, sometimes unless you really know about politics, say like Yvette Carnell, because she worked on the Hill, she was a Democratic aide. You got to respect this woman was in the DNC. I respect that level of expertise. Now a lot of y'all will say, it doesn't matter. You go to college. When you get to the point where you say it don't matter that she was a DNC aide, you don't understand how to respect expertise. Fred Hampton once said that you can't go out into the world until you get a political education and start talking politics. And what we see right now, I think in some ways, is that we're not willing to do the work to get a political education. And so what's happening is it's impacting our ability to actually do politics, and I want to get right into it. This is my birthday. I didn't plan on coming on live, but I think it's necessary because I saw, Tariq Nasheed. He put out a tweet this morning. We went back and forth. You saw on Twitter. In no way am I trying to have contention with this man. I don't know Tariq Nasheed personally. I've never talked to him on the phone. I do commend and appreciate his support of ADOS since last year. As I recall, in November of last year, maybe October, because I remember I was going to one of them Halloween horror nights. He did a video and showed great support for ADOS, and since then has been there to support us. In terms of our message and just really making the case for us having a specific demand. I think in some ways we got to be clear about what that demand is and why we, as ADOS, the political education, the data, the Sandy Darity, the Byron Allen, the reality of what we're doing here, because I think in some ways, what I'm seeing now is people are there's a little bit of a shift, and inside of that shift, shows you don't really see why we did what we did. So let's get right into it. Tariq's tweet today or yesterday, because I didn't see it till this morning. Trump is actually talking about providing specific tangibles to foundational Black Americans. Yet the Democrats who Black Americans have been so naively loyal to are adamant about not doing anything specific for Black Americans. So why should we honestly support the Democrats? On its face, this tweet seems like it's going somewhere. To me, it's not, because in actuality, Trump isn't saying anything, and I'll talk to you about why. But you can't say that without him saying something tangible to the level of $17 trillion in reparations, and I'll address why that's impossible for him to say because of his tax cuts and his overall base being diametrically opposed to ADOS and reparations and recognizing Black folks. Because you want to or not, that he didn't do the work to deserve. I don't know if every word matters at this moment. Part of the reason that we're talking voting down ballot Democrat is to make it clear that we're not a right-wing propaganda tool. Because right now, the 4 Ds come into play. Dismiss, divide, destroy. They're essentially trying to gut us and call us right wing when actually we're just demanding a Black agenda. So as a result, we can't give any fuel to the fire. And I think what I'm seeing right now is an inability to really understand how important that is. Imagery, how important it is to cast this thing as what it is. We're look, black folks since '74 have voted 90% Democrat. Black folks. When you look at Latinos in the last election, 65% of Latinos voted for the Democrats, 35% voted for Trump. When you look at whites, since '74, their rate of vote for the Republicans has been over 50%. And for the Democrats, it's been like 40%. The Democratic Party is our party. The problem is that we haven't called on them with the specific black agenda and demanded of them what they owe us. You don't walk away from what somebody owes you and say it's because they don't want to recognize you without making a haymaker of a case. And that's what we're doing right now. And I think for me, I'm seeing this thing, and I responded to Tariq and I said, this is not real politics. Trump performed one of the most regressive tax cuts in American history that left the cupboard bare for any type of major program that would have cost similar to reparations. You cannot say this without recognizing that fact. So you have this reality of Donald Trump, a Donald Trump that passed the most regressive tax cut possibly in the history of the nation. Regressive meaning he cut everything back. What that leads to is something called starving the beast. There aren't money for basic programs that are already on the books. Forget reparations, $17 trillion. I'm talking Obama phone. I'm talking homeless shelters. I don't know if the economics of things is inside of the understanding of Trump trying to gild the ghetto, cover a bunch of dirt with some icing. See, Trump already said that reparations is interesting, but he doesn't see it happening. He's already said that to us. I don't see how the pieces are fitting for us to get to a space where we even have a discussion about the realities of a Donald Trump that has just passed the most regressive tax cuts. And in addition, in 4 days, Donald Trump will walk into the Supreme Court to scale back the Civil Rights Act of 1866. Part of the issue with the debate, and I don't care if it's Ebro or this discussion with Tariq, Ebro's discussion on a whole nother level, or Talib, these people, like what I'm running into is I'm trying to tell you I'm not guessing. What ADOS did is force the discussion on reparations. I commend and appreciate Tariq's audience support on that, because we all should be all in on that. That's where we at, though. You can't put one foot outside because Trump is all of a sudden talking about opportunity zones. Now, a black agenda as well, but opportunity zones aren't a black agenda. Opportunity zones are gilding the ghetto. See, you had T.I. and you had who else? Charlemagne go down and meet with Tim Scott to talk about opportunity zones. Well, the problem that you saw again was that's Trump's policy. So you going down there to meet with Trump on some policy that we've already know from Nixon doesn't work. I think one of the things that we need here is a political education, both historically, economic education in terms of reality of the moment, the of what we actually need. See, I've been doing this for years. I did this report with William Darity, what we get wrong about closing the racial wealth gap. I want everybody to go read this. You need to read this we all need to read this. When I met with Karen Bass, the head of the Black Caucus less than a month ago, I literally presented to her on the wealth data for 40 minutes, but also gave her a copy of this and said it needs to go to all the Black Caucus members. This tells you why what Donald Trump is proposing is not for black people, not going to help black people, and in a sense doesn't deserve a tweet that actually says, essentially, let me read it again because I don't want to get the words wrong. Talking about Trump is actually talking about providing specific tangibles. Those are not specific tangibles. And I think if we all get more informed, we can understand that point. Part of the reason that this has to be done this way is because this came out in a tweet. So people would say, why don't you direct that? I don't know Tariq personally. I want to make sure y'all understand that. But in addition, it wasn't like, and he doesn't have to, he asked me before putting this out. I'm just making it clear where ADOS is standing. Now, in addition, I say this to you as black folks as a whole. We can't get into backward alleying our way back into striverism or do-for-selfism just through the lane of specific tangibles. The reality is this government needs transformational change in the form of reparations, a black agenda, recognition of ADOS, changing the immigration policy. These are the things that need to happen for black folks to actually gain progress in this country. Now, people will say, well, Trump is talking about immigration change, but he ain't talking about it in a way that helps us. See, framing this discussion requires you to understand that Trump is not our answer. See, the Democrats are holding they owe us. They owe us for 40 years of voting. Obama would not be elected if not for a black vote that didn't demand anything. Well, we here making our demands now. Now, before I get into some of the details, Tariq did respond and he said, well, what are the Democrats doing? First thing I'll say is, again, I'm not pushing a specific candidate on you and then you responded to me. So that is a kind of weird logic line. It's kind of hard because as an attorney, it's hard to make arguments when people are making bad inferences. Like, that's not a logical line. You put out a tweet, so you have to support that with both data and history. I don't have to give you an alternative. Now, in addition, the election is 1 year away. We have a plan that we're laying out that gets undermined by a tweet like this because we all can be casted as something that we're not, which is right wing. Now, you can personally always say, I don't care. But understand that once you do that, you put me in a position where I have to respond, and I'm responding accordingly right now. I'm not doing this at all to be contentious with Tariq Nasheed. I appreciate the support, bro. I'm doing this for a black politics. I'm doing this for a career that I've set up for almost a decade and a half to get to this point. I'm doing this for the Civil Rights Act of 1866 that'll be in 4 days. Understand that the Civil Rights Act of 1866 was not going to be a national topic if not for ADOS, the Tone Talk Show, and Breaking Brown Show. I'm not guessing. I talked to Byron yesterday for an hour. I talked to him the day before that for 45 minutes. This may be one of the wealthiest black men in the history of the nation. I'm trying to pull us along here. What I cannot have is things that make it harder and put mud in the sand, because they are already trying to make an argument that doesn't stick. This is one of those muds in the sand. We don't need for Trump to be made into this unicorn that he didn't do the work to actually be even casted as. Opportunity zones are gilding the ghetto. Gilding the ghetto does nothing to fix the ghetto. But listen to me. I'm going to cut in a clip of Dr. Cosby in the final version right here and let him, Dr. Kevin Cosby of Simmons College, president of Simmons College, also pastor of one of the largest mega churches in all of Kentucky. He employs more black people than anyone other than in the state of Kentucky. And he'll tell you in your own, because he was on my show. See, what I've done with my shows is I've interviewed people, economists, leading wealth people like Byron, pastors, professors. That's what you got to do to build that political education. Now I'll go into my archives and let him explain to you why what Donald Trump is proposing is not an answer for black America. That I got to bring Dr. Cosby in because Nipsey was taking advantage of something called opportunity zones. Opportunity zones took a big boost under Trump's tax law. Let me read a section to you, Dr. Cosby. I'm going to let you chime in right after I read it. Mm-hmm. What it says is, let me find it right here. Buried, and this is from Bloomberg, buried in the Republican tax overhaul that President Donald Trump signed into law in late 2017 are incentives for investors who fund businesses or develop real estate in new opportunity zones. What's an opportunity zone? It's a U.S. Census tract that meets the law's criteria for high poverty or low incomes. Dr. Cosby, speak on it for me.
Well, I think, Tone, that the mistake that people make is that they don't realize that gentrification is designed to alter a place, but it's not designed to alter the people who occupy the place. So the opportunity zones is for opportunists who have the colonial mindset, which takes low-income areas, buys that property dirt cheap, and transforms the place.
Come on.
But it does not affect the economic well-being or the wealth positionality of the people who live in the place. In fact, property values tend to escalate, and those persons, because there's been no change in their economic situation, are then moved out because they can no longer afford the taxes. And so just because you see a place being developed does not mean that the people who are living in that place and who have lived in that place for decades are being developed also. I've told my congregation, because I'm in the midst of, I live and my congregation is in a very poor zip code. In fact, it's the poorest neighborhood in the whole state of Kentucky where my church is located. The poorest area in Kentucky, they say, is Appalachia. There's a county in Appalachia called Owsley County, and the median income or the wealth is about $30,000 median wealth in Owsley County, Appalachia. But where I am, where St. Stephen Church is, it's the income is just about $12,000 a year. I mean, it is.
Say that again. Wait. So the income is $12,000 a year. You know, we're gonna get into that community and what happened when you bought millions of dollars. You did what Jay-Z said. You bought all the property. And we're going to get into whether the businesses came. But what I will say is that if people are worth nothing in terms of wealth, and the businesses they have zero wealth, and they're only making $12,000 a year, a representation of Black America all throughout the South, from Texas to Louisiana to Alabama to Mississippi. Come on.
And let me say also, it's very important to recognize when I purchased that property. So I've been the pastor of St. Stephen Baptist Church since 1979. Jimmy Carter was president of the United States. This is pre-Reagan, okay? This is still the 70s, and it's still the era of the boomers before Reagan's tax cuts and overhauling the federal government. So I was able to take advantage of boomer money. I had two things working for me.
Come on, Dr. Cosby.
Number one, I had boomers. 1979, I had boomers. And then secondly, I was in a community in which probably the way things functioned in those days was people were trying to leave out of urban areas. So therefore, since urban areas were experiencing white flight and Black professional flight, the property around me was dirt cheap because no one wanted it. So let me
say something, Dr. Cosby, that's crazy about being Black in America. We don't even know how to see exploitation. So now, since we're back, and again, that'll be in the final version. Since we're back, I didn't really want to have this discussion here on my birthday, but I want to keep it short. I want to read a bit of a report, and then I'm going to get into another small issue that I've seen and just give you my stance on it. So in this report, what we get wrong about closing the racial wealth gap, what you see is in myth. I want you guys to pull it up. It's free. We don't charge for it anything. You can actually pull this up. Myth 3 actually kind of addresses this whole gilding of the ghetto that Nixon tried to do, benign neglect, all of these things that went on, and Trump is just emulating that. See, Trump's regressive tax cuts means that he doesn't have any kind of coffer to even levy out programs of any scale that Black folks need. Once he has that, he's a moot candidate for us. In addition, his Tea Party-esque base would never go for actually support of the programs and the plan and the recognition of ADOS the way that we need it. If you don't understand that when you start, you can't negotiate. It's like negotiating with somebody that only got $10 and you need $100. You sitting there talking back and forth with them and they only got $10. What are we talking about? So let's read. Rather than in creating an inclusive and just economy that does not greatly disadvantage a group solely based on their race, politicians across the aisle embraced the idea of buying and banking Black. In 1968, the same year King called for a bank-in, none other than presidential hopeful Richard Nixon came out endorsing Black capitalism. In his speech to the Republican National Convention, Nixon proclaimed, instead of government jobs and government housing and government welfare, let government use its tax and credit policies to enlist in this battle the greatest engine of progress ever developed in the history of man, American private enterprise. Black capitalism in Nixon's eyes was public policies. Blacks were offered allow government to hand over the economic problems of poverty and insufficient wealth in the black community to the community itself, effectively ridding the government of responsibility. 17. Go pick that up, Color of Money. So this is what we're seeing is that this report kind of lays out why that idea that those are tangibles is kind of like it's a mirage. And that's just my position. And I just think that what we have to do is be very focused. We have to be very clear on what we're talking about. Now, it's no problem to have like discussions. Some of the discussions I think could be had privately, but everybody's their own person. They had the right to say what they say. Look, my position and everybody, ADOS is a lineage, but then it's also created by a movement of politics, a very succinct politics around the black agenda and reparations. ADOS is a movement of a lineage. Anybody that's ADOS can go out and talk, and I think that for themselves, for their families, for their communities. But we have a specific message, and one of the things that I can appreciate about the New York Times article about what you guys have done with the different chapters, it's been in line with that message. What I'm kind of seeing right now is a splintering in sorts, and I just want to be clear, I'm not at all trying to be divisive when I say this. In 2018, to my recollection, Tariq came in, and I appreciate his support. I don't know him personally. I've never talked to Tariq on the phone. I appreciate that support, but then, like, I believe in the top of 19, right around, February, March, he started using FBA, which is a whole nother term. It created a splintering that I don't feel was necessary, but he has a right to do. The reason we call it American Descendants of Slavery is that we're making a claim. It's part of it is the legality of it all. The other thing is to ground this group that for so long has been lost in Americanness, and then also make a legal institution understand how it rooted a people in terms of slavery. The FBA thing just started coming about and being used, and I myself don't really understand it, but it's okay. Everybody has the right to use it. I never said anything because of that. We came forward, and then you have Tariq announcing last week, I believe, a competing conference. I've never talked to Tariq Nasheed. I send him messages once in a while. He doesn't really respond. He sends thumbs up sometimes. Maybe once or twice, 3 times he's responded. I want to say clearly that I invited Tariq Nasheed to our conference when it first got announced. We went back and forth, but then I didn't see the interest level there, so I didn't want to actually, I was waiting for him to say anything back if he wanted to come or not. Nonetheless, we had the conference. It was a rousing success. I really don't understand the announcement of a conference that competes and splinters black folks in terms of the amount of resource they have. A few months before our conference, everybody has their right to do what they do. Essentially, black folks that are flying across the nation only have so much resource. I don't necessarily understand some of the messaging from Judge Joe Brown and what he talks about at times to, economic, like what we're talking about is the fact that working age black folks, and I'm not guessing when I say this, are largely wealthless. And the demand we have is very succinct. It's reparations, a black agenda, and a recognition of the transformational things that have to happen in government for that to happen. This tweet, along with some of the elements I've seen, and I haven't seen any details, but the elements I've seen about, it's almost black aspiration in a way that's seeding into this secondary message, doesn't fall in line with ADOS as I see it. But we all are people, and you guys can believe what you believe. What I'm telling you, without question, is that I have been reviewing the data for almost 5 years, that I've worked with the leading economists, that I talk to the wealthiest black man in the nation possibly quite regularly about the reality of how at the top, things that you guys don't even know, black folks are locked out. People that you think are making money are not making money. I'm trying to transform that. Let's stay on message. Because we don't need anybody coming in here and casting us as something that we're not. We're not right-wing. We largely don't support Donald Trump. We vote Democratic 90% of the time, and we want our pay for that in terms of agenda and political items. That is where ADOS is at. And I just wanted to come to you real quick. Take it how you take it. This is Tone Talks. Again, this is my birthday. I didn't plan on doing this video. No way am I taking any shots at Tariq Nasheed or anything that he's trying to do, but I wanted to be clear on where I stand both personally and what I've discussed both with Yvette Carnell and other ADOS. Thank you so much. I'm out.